This is Mr. Hulsey of 8 Squared Sufficiently Understood Science, and today we're going to be talking about energy pyramids. Now, if you haven't already watched our episode on food webs, I suggest you go ahead and do that before continuing with this video. It'll help you understand everything that's going on here. So you can click the annotation in the top corner. So an energy pyramid shows the amount of energy that moves from one trophic level to another in a food chain. And we're going to be using a unit of measurement of energy to represent this called the kcal, or kilocalorie. You know how when you eat foods you see on the box calories? That's a measurement of how much stored energy is available in that food. And whenever you do work or move, you're using calories. And so we have an example over here where we see that the pyramid gets smaller as we go up. And that has to do with sustainability. We can see that the producers have the most kilocalories. The primary consumers will have less, and less as we go up. So this is the reason why the number of animals go down, number of organisms, go down as you go up the energy pyramid. There's less and less energy available to these organisms. The most energy is going to be available at the producer level. And so this is based off a 1 square mile area, this chart. And in 1 square mile, the producers are able to have 5 million kilocalories of energy. Remember, they're getting their energy directly from the sun. So they're going to, whenever they're eating, they're going to pass that energy along. But they're not going to pass all of it along because the producers are going to use a lot of that energy in order to grow, in order to live, and it's going to lose a lot of that energy. In fact, it's going to lose 90% of the energy that's collecting due to heat and due to metabolism. And that's going to carry on throughout the whole time. So if we were to kind of give an idea of how much is here, the primary consumer would get 10% of the total energy from the producers. And so this energy, available energy, decreases as it moves up the energy pyramid. So the primary consumers would only receive 500,000 kilocalories from this 1 square mile. Okay, they would only be able to get 500,000 calories. And so the population goes down. Okay, the next level, the secondary consumers, will only be able to get 50,000. And so their population will go down. And the top level here, the tertiary consumers, will only get 5,000 calories out of this 1 square mile. And so as we go up, less and less organisms are able to live off of this amount of food. It's kind of like if you had a loaf of bread. You could probably feed 2, maybe 3 people, but you couldn't feed 100. And so the less of amount of food, the less amount of energy available, the less number of organisms that can occupy each trophic level. So this is a really good graph to show you how this works. At the bottom, we have energy on one side, we have population on the other. And so on the left-hand side here, we're looking at energy. Down here with the producers, we have a lot of energy. And so the population over here on the right-hand side is large. We can have a large population there. But as we go up, energy decreases. Our energy gets lower and lower because it's used up. And therefore, the population will also decrease. So with each level, as energy gets lower and lower, the population also gets lower and lower. They get smaller. Now, the reason for this energy loss is because for example, when a lion eats a zebra, it does not get all of the energy from the zebra. Energy is lost from link to link, and it's fairly significant. Like I said, only getting 10%, 90% is going to be lost due to heat and other bodily functions. So we start here at the bottom with our ultimate source, either light or chemical energy. That's transferred into the primary producer, creating our 100%. That's where we start off with the maximum amount of energy that can be absorbed. And so our primary producers, we're going to represent them as 100%. And they are going to use 90% of that energy for their daily activity. All right. And then the first level consumer, or the primary consumer, consumes the primary producer, but only gets 10% of that original amount of energy. They too will lose 90% of that in their daily functions. The secondary consumer will only get 1% and will use 90% of it in their daily functions. And the tertiary consumer will only get 0.1% of that original energy. And so energy is lost significantly at each level. And so this is why we don't see pyramids that have 8 or 9 trophic levels, because there's simply not enough energy for these organisms to survive. It's not sustainable. And so these third level or tertiary consumers are going to have to actually eat quite a few secondary consumers in order to get enough energy to keep them alive. And that's why we also don't see a lot of big populations in these areas. And that's it for energy pyramids. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to know when we post new tutorials. And this has been Mr. Hulsey for H Squared Sufficiently Understood Science.